Good morning, everyone. This is the Couch Coach coming to you live from the ATL. Hope all of you do spectacular on this rainy Thursday morning here in Georgia anyway. Hope all of you are doing spectacular just in general. So listen, I wanted to create this video because I have been talking to Catfish about ways to kind of keep the channel going through the dead of talking season here, which we are all a part of. Listen, the vast majority of you are college football fans. The vast majority of you care immensely about college football, a lot more than some of these other things. I mean, yes, we could talk about this new football league. Yes, we could talk about college basketball. But I'm just going to be very honest with you. The Couch Coach could care less about basketball. He could care less about the new pro league or even the NFL. College football is where it's at. And so what we're planning on doing through the dead of talking season, especially going into March, April, May, is doing the way too early predictions for some of these football teams. Now, listen, I know that there's a lot of YouTubers who will wait and do these kind of videos in July and August when football season starts kind of creeping up. And then there's other YouTubers that tend to do these really, really early. To me, like I said, I could care less about all these other things going on in the spring. So football is the main thing for me. And I got to be honest with you, how I feel about a team in February and March very rarely changes when it gets to July and August. Now, listen, something could happen in the spring game, right? That could change my mind. We can get there could be some different transfers that come in the summer that could, change your program around. You could have a player get kicked off the team, right? All those things could happen in the summer, right? So I'm not saying that your fortunes could switch at a blink of an eye, but I do believe that for the most part, the way I feel about an Alabama, the way I feel about a Clemson is going to remain the same in March or February or July or August. So why not just bring those opinions whenever I feel like it, right? So because Catfish's channel tends to go towards a certain sect of SEC fans and ACC fans, we'll talk about the teams like Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, South Carolina, Florida. Those are the teams that most of y'all tend to care about. I mean, we might talk about an Auburn, some of these other teams, maybe an LSU, but we're really trying to focus on the teams that most of you care about. And then finally, I'm going to start with the teams that aren't my teams, a.k.a. Georgia, to just give an outsider opinion, because typically an outsider tends to have a pretty good gauge of your program. And I try to not look at it through hater lenses, right? So even though I might feel a certain way about Florida or Tennessee, I try to be a little bit more objective just because I don't have any stake in the outcome other than us wanting to beat you guys, right? So like with Clemson, for instance, I especially feel that way. I mean, I like Clemson. I don't have any issues with them. I think their program's fantastic. If we play them, I want to kick their ass, right? But overall, I don't have any issues with Clemson. So I feel like I can look at their schedule, look at what's going on with their program, and give really solid feedback as opposed to a South Carolina Gamecock fan who can't stand their guts, right? And just overall, fans tend to overanalyze their team, and I'm guilty of that as well. Like when I do the Georgia Bulldogs, which I'll probably do towards the end, I will try to be as basic as possible with my predictions just because, again, sometimes you can put your hopes and dreams into your team and not look at it the right way. And so I'm going to look at it just very, very, keep it very simple, because sometimes simple is the right answer. In fact, a lot of times I think simple is the right answer. So the team I'm going to start off with today, obviously because it's the Volunteer Roadshow or Roadshow Sports, is the Tennessee Volunteers. And kind of how I break down these teams is basically kind of a program overview and then also just a brief glimpse into what the season does. I'm not going to get too much into the schedule. There's a lot of people who will do that. They'll put up the graphics. They'll give up the probabilities. They'll talk about returning starters. They'll talk about all these things. It gets too nebulous after a certain point. I just tend to look at the schedule and be like, okay, this is my opinion. And overall, my opinion for Tennessee going into 2019 is I think they're going to be an improved football team. Now, improved how much, we shall see. I mean, I think Pruitt has made some upgrades in his staff. I mean, regardless of what you feel about the Jim Chaney hire, I think they probably paid the guy a little too much. I think he's probably an upgrade over what they had at Helton there. But again, it's really hard to tell because of what Tennessee had on offense last year. I think, overall he's trying to get some sophistication within the program. Year one is year one of the program like last year, and I knew going into last year that team had a brutal schedule. Now, I had a lot of Tennessee fans that were in their feelings and telling me, oh, well, you're just a Georgia fan. Tennessee, I just feel they're going to go 8-9 wins. And I said, listen, you go 8-9 wins with that schedule, you need to give Jeremy Pruitt Coach of the Year. Because with that roster and that schedule, that is an amazing coaching job. And, of course, that didn't happen. I also predicted when I did these kind of videos on the regular that how this team opened the season was going to say a lot about how it was going to unfold throughout the year. Now, most of the time that isn't true. Like when you have a top 25 team and maybe they eat a tough loss or maybe they even get blown out first game of the year, it's kind of like, well, listen, there's enough talent there. The coaching staff's a little bit more established to where they could pull this team together and they could still make a good run down the range there. But with Tennessee, from a confidence standpoint, I felt like they needed to really play well against West Virginia to be able to have that kind of confidence going into the meat of their schedule, which was really brutal last year. And, of course, that didn't happen. So I said, well, if they get blown out by West Virginia, it's probably going to be about a 5-7 team. But even after that happened, Tennessee still had the chance to get to a bowl game. They had a good showing against Auburn, had a good showing against Kentucky. But the last two games of the season, there's just no way to look at it. Those were dreadful performances by Tennessee. You cannot get blown out against the Missouris and the Vanderbilts. It's one thing to get jackhammered against the Georgia or an Alabama, but against those kind of teams, in your schedule, you have to win those kind of games. The South Carolina game, listen, I know like a lot of Tennessee fans felt like they could have pulled that one out. And, yeah, I think they had their opportunities to win that game. But I felt like South Carolina was still a little more established last year. They were coming off a bye week, which I don't think really helped them that much because, quite honestly, I think Muschamp sucks. But I still felt like South Carolina had enough there to pull off that win. So 5-7, while I'm not shocked by that, I felt like, Tennessee had the opportunity to maybe make it 6-6 and get to a bowl last year, and they just didn't, do it on the field. That's just the bottom line. So this year, I think the schedule eases up a little bit for Tennessee. Getting BYU on the schedule is definitely preferable than playing a top 15, top 10 team like West Virginia. It just is. West Virginia had a good football team last year. And I would have said that as a Georgia fan. if Georgia had to open up with West Virginia, that would have been a tough out for Georgia. And so for a team like Tennessee, that's just very hard to overcome in year one. But again, you give a coach 4 years. Unless your coach is going like 2-10 and getting blown out by 40 points every game, you give a coach 4 years. And so I think you have to give Pruitt 4 years. And I think 2020, 2021 will really tell you what you have with Jeremy Pruitt. I think the recruiting's getting a little bit better there. But overall, I think it is imperative that Tennessee makes a bowl game this year. It could be the papajohns.com bowl, whatever, but I think you guys need to get into that, 6, 7, 8 win range this year to feel good about the trajectory of your program. I don't see you beating the Alabamas, the Georgias. You just aren't, and I'm not trying to be a hater there. Now, do I think Georgia's going to go into Neyland Stadium and beat you guys 41-0 again? No. But I do think that Georgia, just from talent and depth standpoint, has a little bit more than Tennessee there. Alabama, you're not going into Bryant-Denny and winning that one. You just aren't. And then even Florida, listen, you could theoretically go to Florida and win that one, but I just don't see it. Now, I do think Florida beating you guys last year was more about self-inflicted wounds than it was anything that Florida did, but I still feel like Florida had the better football team last year. And I feel that way this year. You guys have beaten them, one time in the last decade, so I have to go with Florida until proven otherwise. So those are 3 losses off the bat. Now, the rest of these games, a lot of them fall in the toss-up categories. I think that BYU is a good football team, but you got to win that game at home. The same thing I feel about Mississippi State. Mississippi State's a good football team, but they're kind of hot and cold on the road. So you have to win those kind of games if you want to become bowl eligible. Vanderbilt, you absolutely 100% got to get off the snide against them. That is ridiculous to lose to them 4 years in a row. Missouri, with a lot of crap they got going on with their bowl ban and things like that, you got to win that game. South Carolina, that's another year where you should win that game. You could win that game, but I still think South Carolina, just from an established standpoint, has a little bit better of a nucleus than you guys. Now, it wouldn't shock me, especially at Neyland Stadium, because you're playing them there, that you could pull that game off. I mean, I think that South Carolina, especially in the Muschamp, hasn't blown my doors away. So, and that Tennessee-South Carolina series tends to be very close. I know, like last year when we were talking about that game, there's a lot of South Carolina fans that thought they were going to blow Tennessee out. I'm like, there's no chance you guys are blowing Tennessee out. Tennessee and South Carolina always play each other tough, and there's usually some upset potential in that game. And so it wouldn't shock me if Tennessee upset South Carolina there. And I do think it probably would be an upset. I kind of figure that South Carolina would probably be a 3-point favorite if things go the way they're supposed to go. So, I mean, those are games that Tennessee can win and they should win. And so I think it's imperative for Tennessee to get into that 7-8 win range this year. They don't do that. I think that's a horrible coaching job from Jeremy Pruitt. But as far as Tennessee overall, again, you should want to be in that like 7-8 win range this year. I think if you guys finish like 7-6, 8-5, that's a good season for you guys. Now, a lot of Tennessee Vol fans will come back at me and say, "Well, it's not, it's not good enough." Well, that's fine. I get it, but it's forward movement, right? I mean, you're moving forward. I mean, just like last year, even though you went 5-7, it's forward movement from 4-8 or whatever, right? And so, in 2020, you guys want to be back in that 9-10 win range. You want to be really kind of being a good, battle for the East there. And then 2021, I think, is where Pruitt really needs to show that he can get this team in, contending for the East, getting to a major bowl game, if nothing else, 10-11 win season. That's something that, I think Tennessee fans would expect in year 4. The offense, I think that's going to be the key to y'all's success this year. If you're still having issues on that offensive line, that's going to be a problem. If you're still lacking an identity, that's going to be a problem. If the play calling is wonky from Chaney, that's going to be a problem. If Garantano is just kind of there and you guys get down by 14 points and he can't throw you back into a football game, that's going to be a problem. If you had somebody better than Garantano, I would play him. Now, I know a lot of Tennessee fans like Garantano. I think that's fine. I think the kid's tough. He takes a hell of a beating. But do I think he's the kind of player that's going to cover up a lot of warts like a Josh Dobbs? No. So I think you need a better quality of athlete there at the quarterback position. But that's not just Tennessee. I mean, that's everybody. A lot of programs are that way. But I just think that, Tennessee this year, I think they need to get back in that bowl eligibility frame. And I think they can. I think the schedule is favorable, especially in the beginning half. And I think if Tennessee can start the season kind of, 4-1 or even, kind of get, going there 4-2, I think that's going to give them some confidence. And confidence is key in football. So anyway, this is going a little long, gang, but that's my predictions about Tennessee. I think they're going to finish about 7-6, 8-5 for the year. Let me know what you think. Tell me I'm wrong, and we'll go from there. To the loop.